Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about a team that is very near and dear to my heart, but also could be participating in this alleged Chinese tournament that's coming in, hopefully within the near future, that apparently Runaway was rumored to be invited to, and that is Meta Athena. Now, for those of you who don't know, Meta Athena was a team who kind of came up to prominence in Season 2 of Apex, rest in peace, and they kind of showed a very creative and interesting style, trying to develop the meta game in many different ways, using characters like Mei and Sombra, and really kind of innovating on those characters and using them in ways that people weren't necessarily using them at the time. With Libero's fantastic blitz kind of strategy on point A of Hanamura. I think that he was also pretty pivotal in the couple of Mei boost strategies on Nambani A and Dorado A, I believe, that they developed and were really cool little strategies that they had a hand in creating. But this team, since the departure of a lot of key players like Libero and their tank lineup always kind of being in a state of flux, they added the DPS Duo, or the most notable additions that they've added. They've added the DPS Duo of the Afrika Freaks roster, or the Afrika Freaks Blue roster to be more specific, that was now or is now defunct, of Ricry and Arhan. Now, Ricry and Arhan are very, very good players, but it's an interesting mix with this team because Ricry has had his moments of very, very clear mechanical, skill that we've seen. But he also kind of overlaps with a Meta Athena mainstay in Saya Player, who's probably one of the best DPS players outside of the Overwatch League. If you're looking for somebody, please pick him up. Now, that being said, within, I believe it was the Nexus Cup, they did have a chance to kind of show this new roster out with the Arhan Saya Player DPS Duo, and it showed promise, but it never really came together, and it kind of harkens back to the old reason why the Meta Athena roster really never kind of was great. It was always good. It had the potential to always be good, but it didn't seem like they could take that next step up. And if we remember correctly, they were very prominent in the triple tank style, with kind of funneling all the resources in their Zarya player, their star Zarya player, Hoon. Now, kind of taking that concept and applying it to the way that Meta Athena is built right now, with Arhan and Saya Player in the DPS role, it seems like Arhan is the type of player who needs a lot of the resources funneled into him, or he is going to be basically a glorified tank player. What I mean by that is that Arhan's is gonna dive, regardless, and with plenty of reckless abandon, and just dive in and just create a lot of room for Saya Player to work, which is great, but that basically means you're running triple tank, right? He's diving in, he's creating a lot of pressure on the back line, he's creating a lot, Arhan that is creating a lot of pressure all over the place, but there's not a lot of damage necessarily coming out from him, and the only damage source there is then Saya Player. There's two things that are kind of wrong, or two kind of topics I want to talk about with that. Arhan gets a lot of slack for being kind of this, again, very reckless player, kind of this berserker style of Genji. But if you build around him, like we've seen in the past, it can work. The only problem is that Meta Athena has built around this kind of style before, and it really just doesn't pan out. It's proven to be kind of short-sighted. It's just not conducive of a long-term career within, the Korean contender scene, if that's what we want to call it these days. That being said, some replacements that I would love to see, or maybe some interesting additions that I would be interested to see added to this Meta Athena roster, would be the old MVP Infinity DPS player EasyBro. Now, EasyBro does kind of overlap with Saya Player in a way, but his hero pool kind of notes back to the old Meta Athena kind of creative, it dates back to that creative element and really kind of draws on some cool and interesting notes that, maybe Meta Athena could use this hero pool that he has. He was a person that, for whatever reason, decided that he was going to favor Bastion instead of Soldier on points like King's Row, where at the time, this was about the time where the weird Bastion Ironclad changes were coming in, with his passive damage mitigation was kind of being toyed around with. Instead of running Soldier on the high ground for their point A-holes on King's Row on defense, MVP Infinity would run Easy Bro on Bastion and kind of use him more as a, not necessarily in the turret configuration, but more as the recon configuration. I always thought that was kind of an interesting little quirk about him, that he kind of favored the Bastion and not the Soldier. So I think that he always had some interesting heroes there. He did play quite a bit of other heroes. I think he played Widow, and obviously he did dabble with Soldier, and I believe he had some other heroes under his repertoire that were always kind of just very, not gimmicky. Okay, in a sense, a little bit gimmicky, but you can start to see where those two creative forces could meet, and possibly Meta Athena could use him in a creative light, like we've seen maybe the Dallas Fuel versus the Soul Dynasty. A lot of creative, cool elements there that could be kind of picked up on and added to anybody's gameplay. And I think that that's maybe a note for the future that could be really interesting. More teams can be more stylistic, like the Team Enviouses of the, Apex Season 3, where they didn't have a lot of projectile players. And I think Meta Athena could kind of come back into that and become a very stylistic team and find a style and a strategy that works for them, and they just kind of hone that one strategy. Now, that being said, another addition that I think would be really cool for this Meta Athena roster would be the old Rocks Orca player. And I believe he played on Afrika Freaks Red originally and then transferred to Afrika Freaks Blue, Ty Dalla. Now, he's a very interesting player. He did kind of flex all over the place for Rocks Orcas coming up through the Challenger series, or the Challenger scene, I should say. He played basically whatever was needed. He's like this very average flex player. And by flex, I mean not flex tank, but also did play flex tank, but played flex DPS, played anchor DPS, so like your hit scans, your projectiles, he played it all. He even played a little bit of support, kind of a little bit of Zen and Sombra, I believe. And he really just kind of tried to mold and be that kind of Libero-esque element for the old Rocks Orcas lineup. Now, that being said, is he the budget Libero that this team needs to kind of come back into kind of their golden era? It's possible. I think that it could be a really interesting addition to the team. But those are just, that's one fork in the road that you could take. That's one path in the fork in the road that this team could possibly take. Another fork, or the other path, I should say, is kind of to recreate the old Afrika Freaks Blue style, where you just keep Saya player as a very passive DPS, which he's toyed with in the past. Once the triple tank meta kind of started to fall off for Meta Athena, they never really got back to where their golden age was in Season 2 and coming out of the Challenger series. But if Meta Athena tries to recreate the old Afrika style, where they just kind of funnel everything into Arhan, and they let him kind of do what he wants and let him kind of dictate the pace of the game, it's possible that they could see some definite success there. I just don't know for how long that Arhan, I don't know exactly how long that strategy is going to last before people start to identify that, Arhan is the threat. And you can't really just only operate around him. There has to be multiple threats on the team. And we haven't seen a lot of Arhan in terms of versatility in the past. And with what we've seen now coming out of the Overwatch League and even some of the Open Division, we've seen, versatility is what you want on your teams. That being said, it's sad because Meta Athena did have a lot of promise coming out of Season 2. I had them winning Season 2, oddly enough. And they were almost, they were pretty damn close on winning it. So With this new tournament rumored to be coming out, I hope that, we start to see a return to form for Meta Athena, as a team that kind of holds a near and dear little space in my heart. I hope that they do really well and they do find their style, because it's sad when you watch a team come up and have this really clear and defined color that the South Koreans like to talk about a lot. They talk about team color, and they're very defined, very vibrant in their color, not very murky. They knew what they wanted to do, and they did it. Funneling everything into Hoon, Libero basically flexing all over the place, and Zaya player just kind of being the definition of an anchor DPS, right? He's a very consistent threat. He pops off sometimes, but most of the time he's just very standard, right? Just very, very good across the board. But now, after the triple tank meta, they've really never gotten their foothold back in the meta game, and I hope to see them have a return to form. So until next time, guys, thanks for listening to me ramble about random topics. Follow my Twitter and read some articles if you feel like it. So thanks again, and hope you have a stellar day.